friends, welcome back to my channel. Just wanted to come on here and share a little bit about my February reading. I finished a lot of things in February. I had a great reading month. I read some things for the BookTube Prize. I read some things for the book club. I read some things with my buddies. I had some fantastic reading conversations, bookish conversations. I got some new books, which I'll talk about in another video. And I just had a great time with books. So far has been a wonderful year for bookish things. Some not so great things happened in February. My dad was ill. He got a stroke towards the end of February, and now that I'm filming this, he is back at home. He has suffered for some deficits. He spent 10 days in the hospital, and now that he's back home, he's still not walking. He's still not really able to do anything unassisted aside from he's alert, he could talk, he could feed himself. But being in the hospital was stressful for him as well as for my mom and my brother, who are, you know, caring for him. So that was really tough, and we haven't been able to go see him yet. My daughter's passport had expired, and we submitted it to be renewed 2 days before he got a stroke. 2 days. So we submitted my daughter's passport on the Wednesday, and on Friday evening is when we heard that my dad had the stroke. And so I tried to get an appointment to see if we could get her passport expedited, and she has some time off from school, but by the time we'd be able to get an appointment to get it expedited, her time off from school would be over, and I can't go to Jamaica and leave her here. So we're just happy that my dad is back home, and hopefully we'll be able to go see him when her passport comes back, and we're able to have a great time, have a great trip, and just, you know, celebrate his recovery sometime soon. But for now we are just, you know, taking that recovery moment by moment, day by day, just thanking God for everything that has happened thus far, and looking forward to even more recovery, more happy times in the future. So just wanted to update you because I told you about that in a previous vlog. But yeah, aside from that and everything that entailed, my reading life has been going well. So I read these things in February. If you're new here, or if you haven't heard about the BookTube Prize, the BookTube Prize is one of the bookish prizes that occurs here on BookTube, and it's hosted by Robert from Robert Shared, and he invites people, bookish creators, to weigh in on which book we think should be the prize winner for this year. And it's books that were released, books that were published in the prior calendar year. So all the books that we are reading were published in 2024 in the United States. So there are two categories right now. There's nonfiction and fiction, and we start off with octofinals. I'm judging nonfiction this round, and so this is my category. These are the first 3 books that have been assigned. For each round, we'll get 6 books to judge between. And so I read The Bookshop by Evan Friss, A History of the American Bookstore. I read Knife by Salman Rushdie, and I read Romaneer by Andre Aciman. These are the first 3 books that were on my list. I have 3 more that I'll be reading in March, so I'll be able to talk to you about them. One of the requirements for the BookTube Prize is that while we're reading, that we not share our thoughts about the book, so as not to influence each other as we are preparing our ballots. So I don't want to talk about the books yet. What?
Do you say the prizes?
Prizes, yes. BookTube prizes. Come say hi to the friends. So I'm making a video. So I'm making a video where I'm sharing my thoughts real time as I'm going through the books, and I will share that when this round has wrapped up. But aside from that, these are other books that I read and that I'll be able to tell you about. Come over here. Let the friends see you. Say hi, friends.
Hi, friends.
Yeah, she's off on holiday, and so we're a little dressed up today. We love it.
Yeah,
Okay.
ice cream store.
The ice cream store. Okay, so these are the other things that I read. I read Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson because it is a Runwright Reads book club selection for February. So again, if you're new here, you may not have heard, you may not know that I host a book club called Runwright Reads Book Club, shameless promotion. And we read and promote books by Caribbean authors or new since last year. We read also books by authors whose parents are from the Caribbean. This is definitely one of those second generation Caribbean stories where we're reading about children whose parents are from the islands, and in this book it is not specifically stated that it's Jamaica, but Jamaica is a strong inspiration for the story. So we're reading about two characters, Byron and Benny, whose parents have just passed away, and they are dealing with learning more about their parents' history as they grew up and left the Caribbean and moved into England and then later to the United States, what legacy their parents have passed on to them. And so it is about children who are not born in the Caribbean themselves experiencing the legacy of Caribbean heritage. And I really enjoyed this story. This was not a perfect book. It is a debut, and it has a lot of the trademarks of a debut where the author includes a lot of different plot points, a lot of different subplots, and a lot of different following a lot of the characters, a lot of not necessarily points of view, but following a lot of their stories that didn't necessarily need to be included for the plot itself to carry through. But the main plot was just so good. I loved it, and so I gave this a really high rating. I can't remember if I gave it a 4.5. I think it was a 4.5 because it's better than a 4. Maybe I said I took off a 0.5 point because of the inclusions that weren't necessarily needed to be there, but I really love this book, and so I definitely want to recommend it highly. I will make a single book review for this. I keep saying I'm going to do those things, and then it's hard sometimes for me to get to. I read this one. I'm not going to get too far into it because I'm also going to be discussing this in an upcoming video. I have a few exciting videos planned for you for later this month, and I really hope I'll be able to get to make them. So I read The House of Eve by Sadiqa Johnson. This was kindly sent to me by Simon & Schuster back when it was first published in 2023, and I'd started reading the book, but I don't think I didn't finish it. And I know I didn't finish it because I didn't remember how the story ended. So it was interesting rereading the first part of it because I thought I knew how the story ended. So we're reading about two young women who are growing up in the 1950s in Washington, D.C. and where's the other place? Philadelphia. 1950s Philadelphia. And we're reading about two very ambitious young women who want to do more with their lives. Intellectually, scholarly, they have dreams, they have ambitions, and what it's like when their romantic pursuits threaten to railroad those ambitions. So the characters are very young. They're teenage girls. One is 16 and one is a little older. She's at Howard University. And you know what it's like, what are their romantic prospects as 16 and 18-year-old young Black women. So the book explores prejudice and racism because this is part of the civil rights movement, and we're reading about what it's like for young women as they deal with impending motherhood and how that will impact choices that they have available to them. And I love that I love that the story is not just limited to the two main characters, these two young women. It also shows a breadth of experience as we're reading about women at various stages of life and how motherhood has affected them. So I really enjoyed this one. Made some videos. I will share my link to my Instagram profile so you can go see some of the reels that I have made in February relating to some of those books. I read this one. This book really angered me in a lot of ways. I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, and I buddy read this with two friends, and we were both similarly distraught as we read this book. If you're not familiar with the Huckleberry Finn story, it is about a young white boy who, at the beginning of the novel, we learn that he has experienced a windfall because something that had happened in the adventures of Tom Sawyer led to him having a large sum of money, and it marks him as a target. So there's someone who is put to be his caretaker, but he's not comfortable being with her. And then he has a father who is trying to manipulate him and who's also abusive, so he decides to run away. And while he is running away, he meets up on a young black man who he knows from the community, because this young black man is enslaved by someone that he knows. So this young white boy and this older but still young black man are running away from two different experiences, but united in their quest for freedom. And so we're supposed to be thinking about the things that unite these two characters, but as they go on their mission towards freedom, we see the things that are very, very different between them. How they are treated by other people, but also how they treat each other. That in itself is okay. There's a lot of prejudice described in this book. There's a lot of racism, overt and explicit. There is excessive use of the N-word, and some of the things that become resolutions at the end of the story were just really frustrating, because it's one thing to read it as a plot point, as a plot device in a book, but thinking about what these would be as repercussions for the characters, especially the enslaved characters in this book, what it would really mean for them if those things that were spoken about as, you know, regular adventures of a white person's life, what that would mean for someone who did not have agency over their own self. So yeah, I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I have lots of thoughts about this book. Some of them are not so great, but it was also maybe not the right time to read this. It's probably a little harder to read this book in Black History Month, so it might not have been the right time. But we read this to prepare for reading James by Percival Everett, and now I am so anxious to read that book. But aside from that, I read Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Strout, which is continuing three of the main characters that we have been following through Elizabeth Strout's writing. We follow Olive Kitteridge, Lucy Barton, and Bob Burgess. They all come together as main characters in this book, and I love it. The characters are older. We're reading about a 90-year-old Olive Kitteridge. I think when we first met Olive, she was probably in her 70s, and so we have seen her age to the point where she is not as crotchety as she used to be. She hasn't mellowed, but she's also not as outgoing in her vitriol. So we see her a little bit more subdued, but still acerbic, I think is the word that I would use to describe Olive Kitteridge. And she's in conversation with Lucy Barton. She's telling Lucy Barton some of her stories, and Lucy Barton is an author who is from New York but is living in Maine now because of pandemic movements, and experiencing her own ennui, and in friendship with Bob Burgess, and they take these frequent walks together and have discussions about life and relationships. And it is such a quiet book, but it's also this deep character study that I love Elizabeth Strout for. She does it the best. I think she does it the best. So I really, really love this book. Penguin Random House had sent this to me when it was first published last year. Didn't get a chance to read it early when it just came, but I read it now and I loved it, so I will be singing the praises from the rooftops. If you haven't already picked up the Elizabeth Strout books, this might not be the place to start, because you want to learn who these characters are. You want to know Lucy Barton and why she is the way she is. You want to learn more about Olive Kitteridge when she's a little younger and moving around a little bit more. And Bob Burgess, I think he hasn't changed much, which is fine, which is perfectly fine. But I love reading about the three of them together. Then I picked up a few books for fun. I read The Night We Lost Him by Laura Dave, because I have read everything that this author has published. Reading her most recent work keeps that trend going. So this is about okay, you can't do that while I'm making my video though, okay, because it's distracting. I love when you do it, but then I can't focus on anything else. All right. Tonight We Lost Him is about half siblings who, on the death of their father, unite to try to figure out what happened. So in the prologue, we see their father on a cliff in California. It is a cliffside that he owns. He has a house there and has had a house there for a long time, and then he falls off the cliff to his death, and his children are trying to figure out what happened. They don't believe the police investigation conclusion that their father fell accidentally, because this is a place that he knows really well. So they're trying to find out what happened. And so we're reading about characters who start off in Brooklyn, New York, and are now in California. And I love the bi-coastal feel of this book, because some of Laura Dave's earlier work was set in New York, and some of her later work is set in California. And I love that this feels like it's tracing a little bit of the author's history itself. So I love that. I also really love the story here, because we're reading about siblings, half siblings perhaps, but their father had tried to compartmentalize his life, and now they are trying to figure out their relationship outside of him. And I love that they're getting to know each other. They, at the same time, they're getting to know themselves, and it just works. Like, the relationship in here just works. Like, the author really gets the sibling, the desire to be close but not feel like you're giving up any part of yourself, if you know what I mean. So man, I really enjoyed this. So I had some really high reading points this month. Other things that I started and haven't yet finished, I'm still reading The Invisible Man. I'm still reading Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. I wanted to finish this for Black History Month. I didn't. So I will come back to this and share more on that when I'm done. Started reading The Backyard Bird Chronicles by Amy Tan. Haven't yet finished this. But I think my library says this is due, so I may have to return this to the library before finishing it. So I don't know if you'll hear about it in the next set of videos, or if I'll have to wait until I can get it back from the library or get my own copy. But I will finish this at some point. And then I'm also currently reading this book, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. So this is also for super secret video that is coming to you soon. So these are the books that I finished in February. Would love to chat with you. Would love to know what you picked up in February, if you read some things for Black History Month, what you focused on, and what your experience was like. So thank you so much for watching, and until we come back for another video, which hopefully will be very soon, because like I said, I have some exciting video projects lined up, and I'm so excited to share them with you. So thank you so much for watching, and until we come back for another video, happy reading. Bye. Yeah. So there's a lot of discussion about, if you guys could keep it down up there. I know it's not soundproof, but yeah.